welcome to edition 97, part 2 of All Killa, No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison. Part 2.
Part 2. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas.
Have you got a bit of a cold?
Do you know what it was? Is I went for a night out day before, and then...
Are you still...
Oh, yeah, I got pissed, so obviously that takes its toll on your voice. And then... no!
Ooh, she's still recovering.
Not today.
Still recovering.
And then, because we watched the last show of Charlotte Church's Pop Dungeon, where they do 5-part harmonies... Obviously, when we're drunk back at the hotel room, we're all trying to harmonise, and was doing that till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So it slightly took its toll on my voice. That's what you can hear.
Yes.
Is the ravages of war when you have an untrained, unbrilliant voice.
So Peroni, the beer, I've not been drinking beer recently now. I sound a bit like I've got a cold, but I don't have a cold. I had a couple of Peronis last night. And I think I'm allergic to it because it makes me sneeze and gives me like a film at the back of my throat. So that's why I sound a bit weird.
What?
I've been sneezing because of Peroni. Do I stop drinking it? No, I never learn.
Well, here's the other thing is I don't know what's normal for a hangover because everyone experiences their own thing. And, Officer H, why am I yawning? I'm allergic to alcohol.
You've had a night out.
Yes, but it was a day ago. Oh, God, I just found a dry roasted peanut in the hoodie I'm wearing. This is not a good day.
Oh, my God.
It's too Christmassy.
Was it? Or was it one of the Queen Mother's teeth?
Oh God. There'll be someone who's, like, making stuffing while you say that, and it's put them right off it.
I've told you about have I mentioned this on the podcast, the tooth in my Edinburgh venue?
What?
I'm sorry if I have mentioned this story. If I had, I'm sure you would remember. So the penultimate day of the Edinburgh Fringe, in my venue, the Hive, as you get into the end of the Fringe and you're thinking, I just want to go home now. I got a bit of a throat infection in the Fringe. I wasn't feeling particularly well towards the end of it because I was just a bit ill. And went into my venue, popped to the loo just before I got ready for my show, having a wee, and I looked down at the floor and there was a tooth on the floor. All right?
Well, hold on. Is it like, am I seeing the root? Am I just seeing a bit? How do you know it was a tooth?
I will tell you now, all right? It was one of those tooths from the front. The ones that no one really bothers with. And it did have it was a tooth. It was the check, right? So, and I was having a wee, and I just looked at it, and I just started dry heaving, going, why is this happening? So it was so disgusting that I didn't even take a picture of it, because it knocked me so sick. I looked at it, and I just thought to myself, that's either from last night or 300 years ago. But I just thought to myself, I cannot fucking believe that is there.
Do you know what I think the greatest indignity is when you go on a night out and you got to wait, for fuck's sake. So, when you go on a night out and you got to wait till like 7 p.m. the next day to call the nightclub and go, hi, did anyone leave a black coat behind? And it's got, it'll have like 2 cigarettes in the pocket and a pound coin. Imagine calling up and going, hi, did anyone find a front tooth yesterday? I don't think it'll be in the cloakroom. Yeah, that is absolutely fucking wild.
But it was just one of those things, because the venue I was in Edinburgh, which was, the staff were brilliant, everything was great, but it basically was it was a nightclub. It's called the Hive, so it sold t-shirts. It used to be open till 5 a.m. every day, so you'd buy t-shirts that say, I survived the Hive till 5, and basically for a month, and I don't know, Jacob Hawley, another comedian who was in that venue, he actually put my thoughts about this were, he voiced them perfectly. He just wrote on Instagram, he put, I've been standing in this cave for a month with water being dripped on me and it's smelling of sick, and I've thought that's normal. So every day for a month I was just waiting to go on stage, stood in a puddle of ancient water, breathing in the smell of vomit. Please welcome to the stage, Rachel Fairburn. Hi, everyone. The amount of times I was just stood there dry retching, just going...
Do you know what the Hive is? The Hive is one of those venues that really didn't benefit from a smoking ban. Do you know when the
Oh my
smoking ban
God,
came
yes.
in and you suddenly go back to a bar that you loved and you're like, it fucking stinks in here. Those
Yes.
cigs were doing some heavy lifting.
In fact, they should bring in the law that you can smoke in there. It should be allowed. The amount of times, though, every day, though, members of the public would come in. Because you know what some Edinburgh Festival clientele are like. They'd come in and they'd go, excuse me, it smells in here. It's a 300-year-old cave. Of course it smells. And then I'd get on and I'd stink the room out. I wasn't helping. I was actually going to make that joke about someone else, but it's Christmas. I'm being kind.
It's lovely to see as well. Where are you for Christmas? We're recording this a few days before, so tell me your Christmas plans.
I am in Lincolnshire at Tim's family home. I do apologise if there is a little bit of background noise. It's very difficult to find somewhere that's super quiet because there's a main road outside. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm here now. I don't understand, right? You probably understand this because you're from the countryside. How does everybody know everyone? Like, going into the car park yesterday in the town centre, Bourne town centre, and Tim's leaning out the window. Hello, mate. Merry Christmas. Hello. I'm like, who are these people? He'll know everyone.
I'm not exaggerating at all, and Kath from Tara can vouch for this because Tara came up the other week and they all stayed, and Kath and I nipped out to get something. I've never, ever, ever left the house and not seen someone I know since I moved back to near where I'm from.
See, this is definitely a countryside thing because obviously I'm from Manchester, from a city. I'd see people every day. I don't know who they are. I don't speak to them. I've been in pubs with people in there that I went to school with. I don't talk to them. They don't talk to me.
I don't talk to everyone I went to school with, but like, it'll be the kind of thing where you pass someone and you go, oh, see that silver car there? That's so-and-so, I went to primary school with them. And then you will know a headline fact about their life. Like, their dad punched a dog to death. Or like...
This is what I mean.
Yeah, you'll just know something about them.
It's so weird.
Is it?
I honestly, it blows my mind. And I just think it's so bizarre. It's so alien to me. It's so weird. Oh, that's old Bob, that. He's a widower now. His wife used to be the assistant at the butcher's.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they work for the MOD, but they said that they were a postman, that kind of thing.
It's so bizarre. Also, here's something, and I'm thinking about trying to write some material on this. Do you know what I mean when I say this? I hate that that faux Christmas good mood.
Yeah, I do.
So you'll be on a train and someone will get on and go, ha ha ha, is someone sitting there? Oh, is his seat free? Oh yeah, no problem. Oh, I'll just move my coat. Do you like that?
Okay,
do you know what I mean?
I've now gone back on this. I thought you meant when you bump into people and they're like, well, Merry Christmas and I hope you have a really great one, and everyone thinks that they're in sort of a Dickens adaptation, that they're the fun cousin from The Christmas Carol. But what you're talking about is people just being pleasant on public transport.
No. This is a Christmas. It only happens at Christmas. I've observed it. So, like yesterday in a car park in a shopping place, and someone's going to get a trolley, and someone else goes, "Oh no, after you!" Oh, the weather's a bit different. It's like it's like they're aliens and they've just learned how to interact. Do you know what I mean when I say this, though?
No, I
pretend niceness.
They're just being nice. Do you know what it is? They're in a good mood because they're going home for Christmas.
Yeah, but it's so bizarre to watch. I find it so fascinating. That oh, it's busy on here, isn't it? Yeah. So
they could
weird.
also still be pissed.
Oh no! Look, listen. I'm an observer of this. These are not still pissed people. These are people pretending to be festive. That's what it is.
Okay.
The faux goodwill is what it is. And I find it's fascinating.
I did, and this man was very nice. This isn't a critique of him because I'll probably end up bumping into him again. I was doing a photo shoot for something in a little town near me. Oh, excuse me. And I was wearing I got this big fur hat I got from a charity shop, and I've got this sequin jacket, and I had a jumper with a sequin peacock on it. And I nipped into the Waitrose, Rachel, because it was the Menno Bridge, and that's the only supermarket there. And they also do the best fucking vegan cheese now, the fromagerie stuff. Anyway, so I came out, and I looked quite extra. And this man went, now that is a Christmas outfit. And he was like really joyously, you know, like Christmassy. And I really like that. Obviously, it's a compliment. I really like it. But he was someone who was like, oh, do you know what? This Christmas, here's my rule as well. If you think the compliments, say it. Because loads of times you think something nice about someone, you never say it. He was definitely doing a bit of Christmas cheer. And I liked it. He was
doing faux Christmas. That's what he was doing. He's learned how to interact. That's what's happened. Good charity shop haul yesterday. I mean, we need to get on with the podcast, but good charity shop haul yesterday in Bourne, in Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
I got some Hunter Wellies.
Nice.
£15.
That's good.
Bargain. Lovely cardigan. There was a coat that was too big for me, and I will forever be upset about that. And a wooden... Now, this sounds like I'm going to... People will think... A wooden dodo.
Oh, my God, I love dodos.
I think it's a dodo. Tim thinks it's a badly made duck. Because it has the fat ass of a dodo and a little tail, so I think that's what it is.
What's his beak like, though? That's the tell. Because the duck's flat.
The beak's wrong. The beak's wrong.
For both of them?
On the figurine, it's wrong. It's got the body of a dodo, but the beak of, I'd say, a stork.
What? What the fuck is that? Oh, is it a kiwi?
Fucking hell, could be, yeah. Never thought about that.
What an incredible round of a pub quiz that'd be.
There we go. I think it's a kiwi.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Should we do this episode?
Yeah, we should.
Let's just say thank you to everyone who came to the Christmas shows as well. Thank you.
Oh, yes! Thanks for the coming to the Christmas shows. They were really fun. Really fun.
Yes, thank you very much.
Can I say something very quickly while we're talking about ducks?
Yeah, go for it.
So my mother is the queen of... Is it not called non sequiturs?
Yeah. I know what you mean. I don't want to say it because I've only ever seen it written down.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to say the gardening implement. So she will message me and be like, your auntie's died, do you want a shoe holder? And it'll be in the same sort of 10 minutes. And she'll just from nowhere... Here's a sign I know, because sometimes you don't always know when things are being repeated or going on telly. I'll get a message from her saying, you look awfully pale. And I haven't seen it in 6 months, so that means I'm on telly. So she messages them mad as shit. Did I tell you there's a ghost in the house? That kind of stuff. Or remind me to show you a newspaper clipping next time I see you. Like, really weird shit. So she messaged me the other day, apropos of nothing, and said, did I ever tell you about my friend who had a pet duck that she used to get drunk and then make it play the piano? And I was like,
oh my God, right.
No, where's this come from? And then I read it out I was with Tara at the time, and we're all fucking laughing over this mad shit. And as Ben rightly pointed out from Tara, if you're going to put a duck on a piano to play it, you don't need to get it drunk. Just put the duck on the piano.
Unless it was shy.
Of course,
it might need some
of us need a drink in us before we'll get on the karaoke.
It's such a weird...
It's mad. Also, I saw my uncle yesterday, and he was telling me about when his father and his father's brothers, so whatever, my great uncles, they were out stationed. One was in Malay, one was in India, all the places that was like formerly colonised, Singapore. He was saying that his dad... I'm being weird about this because my biological grandfather, my tadgi, is... my dad was raised by someone else, but within the family. Anyway, so he had a pet monkey. So he's telling us how he had this pet monkey. And then thinking it was really funny to be like, yeah, they used to get the monkey drunk. And the next day, the monkey would be sat on the roof with his head in his hands. I was like, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. A monkey...
Oh, no, that's really sad.
Yeah, a monkey with fucking beer fear. Like, at least we can rationalise and be like... You know what? That was my fault that I shouldn't have had... And what I was drinking the other day, which is a VK apple and mango, but I just really fancied it. Shouldn't have had that last VK apple and mango. But a monkey is like, what is happening to me? I'm dying for my brain.
Oh, God. Have I mentioned my mum had a monkey as a kid?
What?
So my uncle...
Wait, did I have a waistcoat?
No, it wasn't like that. So my Uncle Pete was in the Merchant Navy, And he was the oldest, my mum was the youngest, so he'd say, "Oh, all right, kid, I'm going away. What do you want me to bring you back? I'll bring you anything." Because we had a parrot for years, Freddie, and he had been brought back from the merchant when he was in the merchant navy and when he'd gone to Africa. So we brought Freddie back, and Freddie used to speak African when they first got him, but then obviously he just started speaking, mimicking us anyway. So my mum said, obviously she's a little girl. She said, "Oh, I want a monkey." And he's like, "All right, kid, I'll see what I can do," right? So he comes back with this little monkey, tiny little, like, spider monkey thing called Susie. But my mum said, I remember, because obviously I'm a kid, and a monkey to me, I'm imagining, I wanted an orangutan. So I'm like, "But can I have a monkey?" And she said, and when I came back with that monkey, I just remember being so disappointed.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
But yeah, it was. They had it for a couple of years, but obviously, I mean, it is cruel, and it's good that you can't do this anymore. But obviously, this was like the 60s. She got quite poorly because obviously you've taken an animal from its natural environment and it's into a different country that's cold. So they used to have to like wrap her up really well and pop her in front of the fire and stuff. But she was obsessed with chewing gum, apparently. If people had chewing gum, she'd open your mouth and get the chewing gum out.
How long did the monkey live?
Oh, a couple of years. But then my mum said it was just horrible because it obviously, when it got really cold in like the winter, it was obviously really struggling, and they were doing the best to keep it warm and stuff, and it just died.
Oh God, that's so sad.
I know. It had a nice life. Well, I say it had a nice life. It enjoyed its life in Cheetham Mill in Manchester for 2 miserable years it was there. Imagine being taken from, I mean, it must have been Africa or somewhere, but being taken from Africa. I mean, to be honest with you, it was a tame monkey, so it probably didn't have the nicest life in the world anyway.
Okay.
But then it's dragged from there to Cheetham Hill. In the shadow of Strange Ways prison.
That's so bleak, that poor little monkey.
Poor Susan.
Do you know your parrot? What kind of parrot was it?
African grey.
Oh, they're very clever. They live for like 80 years, don't they? They're really clever.
Yeah, so bear in mind, Freddie died when I was in my early 20s. So they'd had him over maybe nearly 40 odd years.
Oh, my God. He
was great, though. He was bonkers, that parrot. Very attached to my grandmother.
Oh, really?
Would attack you if you went near her, yeah.
Did it smell kind of nice? I went and did like a filming thing in like, I can't remember is it called Harewood House in Leeds?
Oh yeah,
and it's
yeah.
got like a bird bit on it, which was
an aviary.
An aviary, yeah. So there's penguins, there's all sorts. Because the guy who owned it used to collect animals. They often get given animals that people can't look after anymore. So they've got 2 macaws, which are beautiful, big blue and yellow one. And they come out when you go over to the cage. They'll like come out and crawl across the cages because they know they're going to get treats. And there's a really strong smell of like, it's almost like perfume. It's like musk or something. It's a really strong perfumey smell. And I was like, what is that smell? And the guy was like, oh, that's what parrots smell like. And he said, oh, we used to have a rare breed vet who used to come and she's like, can I have a go on the parrots? And she grabbed the parrot and like sniff it between its shoulder blades. And she's like, oh, just love the smell of a parrot. Isn't that weird?
There is a specific, like, now you mention it, but I suppose because I was used to it, that they do, there is a smell.
Yeah.
Feathery smell. They do have a, you can smell, I think now I'd be able to walk in somewhere and go, is there a parrot in here? But I mean, I know it is fundamentally cruel to keep birds caged, but I absolutely love parrots. If I didn't have problems with how cruel it is, really, I'd love one. I'd have one in a heartbeat.
Really?
Yeah, I love them. They're so clever and funny and annoying, and I really like them. Freddie was great. In fact, some of my earliest memories were sitting in the backyard at my grandparents' as a kid in the summer holidays, and Freddie would be out on his perch dancing, and I'd be sitting there reading a book in the sun. Yeah, really cool he was.
That's so great. What a lovely memory.
Yeah, lovely memory. But here's the other thing. I shouldn't really say this. He used to eat chicken.
What?
I don't think they meant to eat meat.
Oh my God.
So he'd mimic my mum laughing and mimic me crying as a baby and stuff like that. But if you were eating Sunday dinner, you used to bang on his cage until you gave him some chicken.
I've Googled it. Fortunately, parrots can eat all kinds of meat, including chicken.
Oh, thank God.
It should be given in moderation and cooked appropriately.
Oh, God, what, they're fucking barking orders about how they want it cooked now, are they? You're in a cage, mate. You'll get what you're given.
It gives them a lot of protein, apparently.
Oh, so that was all right then. Thank God no one's going to write in and accuse me of animal cruelty.
The picture of next to that thing is a African grey eating a piece of bacon in its claw, which is one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen.
Amazing. Now I'm just sad because I thought... Now, we probably did give him bacon, to be honest. We gave him all kinds of stuff. He had a very varied diet, did Freddie. Anyway, enough about... speaking of cruelty, that's the link. There we go. Charles Manson.
Yes.
A quick recap for this episode. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get onto him.
Oh, yeah.
He's married Rosalie. She's pregnant with Charles Jr. Charles Manson has gone to prison for failure to appear at a hearing in Los Angeles, and this means that his probation for taking a stolen vehicle across state lines is revoked. He's sentenced to 3 years in prison in Terminal Island in Los Angeles. Terminal Island.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just so much of an island. Rosalie gives birth to his son whilst he's in prison. And both she and Charles, his mother, visited him regularly. They were living Charles, his mother, and Rosalie were living together. In 1957, Rosalie stops visiting him and is told, his mother says, I've got to tell you this, Charlie, she's met someone else. Now, less than 2 weeks before the scheduled parole hearing, he tries to escape, and then he gets 5 years probation and he's denied parole.
He tries to escape to get to her, though. So I think
of course
she's fucking lucky that he didn't get there, because I think he would have killed her and the guy.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. But, do you know, he's a very fundamentally boring person, isn't he? Charles Manson.
I think he's the opposite of boring. I think he's too exciting.
I think he's actually boring. He's a boring little man.
I think he's like a little man, not just in stature but in behaviour. But
comedian, a friend of mine, Julian Dean, you know, he auditioned for the role of Charles Manson in Mindhunter.
Did he?
Yeah, because he's a little chap, isn't he?
Oh yeah, because he's petite.
Yeah, he auditioned. He obviously didn't get it, but but the guy, it's the person who played Charles Manson is the guy who plays Charles Manson in everything.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's what he does. What do you do? Oh, I play Charles Manson.
So it's September 1958, and he gets 5 years parole. And in that time, he was on probation, and his parole was denied. But then in September 1958, he gets 5 years parole. Now, by that time, Rosalie has had a decree of divorce, so she's sort of free and off in the world. Thank God.
He's a seedy little man. He starts sort of knocking around with a 16-year-old girl, working as her pimp. He's getting support off a woman with rich parents as well. Who are these women looking at him going, I have to... This man, yes. In September 1959, he pleads guilty to cashing forged cheques. He's given a 10-year sentence, which was suspended after a woman named Leona, this is the young girl, she gives a tearful plea to the judge about how much in love they both are and how she'd marry him if he didn't send him to prison. And the judge is like, no, I'm a sucker for a love story.
What?
And she did marry him. And the reason she probably married him is so she wouldn't be able to testify against him.
Wow.
Because that's a mad rule, isn't it? Isn't that a mad rule?
Yeah, I hate that rule.
You can't. It's so bizarre. He then, right, they both, him and Leona, they take another girl, a young girl, to Mexico and basically force her into prostitution. And he was actually questioned about this, and it eventually led to him being arrested, and he was made to serve his 10-year suspended sentence for the checks because of this. It's chaotic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is chaos. It's chaos.
I have to say, because the house I'm in is very old, it's pissing down outside. So if you can hear little raindrops, that's what it is, and I do apologise for the background noise. But it might be quite nice, actually.
A lovely bit of Foley, Rachel. Say it's snow.
Yeah. That's my middle name, you know. Literally, my middle name, Foley.
I thought you meant snow. I was like, I didn't think it was snow.
But Foley is my middle name.
A lot of Welsh women have the middle name or the name Eira, which is snow, E-I-R-A.
Oh, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and people will be called like Eira Wyn, which is like white snow and things like that.
Oh, so my grandmother was called Olwyn, which I think means white.
Yes.
Like
well,
like
yeah, or Yeah, there's some white in there. Let me look up what Olwen. Olwen.
W-Y.
Y-N, yeah, so Wyn is white. But she is a famous figure in Welsh mythology, if you've read the Mabinogion.
Ah, nice name, Olwen.
Yeah, lovely.
I kind of wish... she was called Olwen Elizabeth Price. So my sister's middle name is Elizabeth, after her. And my middle name is... one of my middle names is Philippa, after my father's sister who died when she was 13 years old. I wish that my dad would just have called... They'd have just called me Olwen.
Really?
Now I do. But also, my mother almost called me Rihanna.
Wow. What?
Right. Thank God she didn't.
Yeah.
That would be crap now, wouldn't it?
It would. There's a few names that you're like, well, that's done.
Anyway.
Kiri. I think I've ruined
talking?
Kiri for a lot of people.
It's a very rare name, though, isn't it?
In this country, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Nice name, though.
I love it.
So, he tries to appeal against this sentence, but he's not successful. In 1961, he's taken to McNeil Island in Washington. Now, his mother moves near to Washington to be near to him, takes waitressing jobs. This is where, I mean, it gets worse. He starts having guitar lessons in there. So he's in there, and it's, bear in mind, this is...
He's taught by a bank robber. He's
so bizarre.
He learns the steel guitar by, I think it's Alvin Kempit, who's a well-known bank robber, who's like, while we're in here. I mean, I'm all for people getting qualifications and stuff, but I don't think we need any more people who can play the steel guitar with a former prison sentence.
Not.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre because, you know, he's in prison with Danny Trejo, the actor.
Shit, really?
Yeah. And while he's in there, talk about networking, he gets contact details for someone at Paramount Records.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because he thinks he's really good. He thinks he's a fantastic musician. Because he's having these guitar lessons. So he's like, hey, can someone get me a contact at Paramount? And he does. He's networking in prison. It's bizarre.
I think he's solely focused on fame.
Well, I think that as well.
I think this is actually someone incredibly fame hungry.
Well, in 1961, his prison review said he has an enormous need to draw attention to himself.
He's definitely done an open mic.
Sorry. As I'm recording this, Tim has just left the bedroom and he's just stepped over me because I've got noise-cancelling earphones in. That scared the living daylights out of me. I'm surprised that I didn't scream then. I'm so sorry. Anyway, where was... Oh, there we go. A little bit of more Foley in the background. Nice bit of coughing there.
From the boy who was never well.
Yeah, exactly. He did. Do you know what? Actually, Tim was very, very poorly the other week. Genuinely ill. I think he actually had flu properly, and it looked like you know the poor unfortunate souls in The Little Mermaid. That's what he looked like, sort of like. Ooh. And he was very, very poorly. And he said to me the other day, he said, "Oh, I was really ill." I said, "I wish you'd have said something." But he did. He looked like one of those. Anyway, Charles Manson had an enormous need to draw attention to himself, and like you say, I think he definitely did a few. I'm surprised he never became a stand-up.
It's amazing. He has to have tried it at some point. He has to. Now,
Leona divorces him. She claims that she's had a son by him called Charles Luther. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another thing, and I'm sorry, we're gonna bust some myths here. So he's wanting to work in music. He wants to be a musician. As you say, I think he's very fame hungry. He thinks he's special, doesn't he? Now, there is a popular urban myth that claimed he auditioned for the Monkees. But that could not have happened because he was in prison at the time. So sorry about that.
What a shame.
Yeah. A bit like when Debbie Harry said that she thought she...
Ted Bundy. Yeah.
And it can't have been because of dates.
Shame
and
that.
the place. It is, yeah. It is a shame. So he's released in 1967. And bear in mind, by this point, he spent most of his life in prison.
In fact, he was, what was he, 32, and he's been in either prison or some kind of institution like a Borstal for 18 years of his life.
So depressing.
When he passes away, which obviously is not that long ago, he was in prison for far more of his life than he was out of it. He's become institutionalised, and he requests to stay in prison because he sees prison as his home. Yeah. He's like, well, I spent most of my time in here, please can I stay in prison?
They're like, no, you've got to go. They're like, no, it doesn't work like that, Charles. Can you go?
There should be something for... Obviously, I'm not defending him, but when I did stuff with, like, homeless, largely men in Manchester, a lot of them were either ex-army, care leavers, or prison. So it's all an institution that is sort of controls a lot of your life, and then they just kick them out and leave them to it. There should be some kind of, like, middle ground that will ease them back into either... the hope is independent living, but if not supported living, rather than being homeless.
Speaking of Bella the dog has just come to appear on the podcast now. She just walked. Speaking of need for attention, she's just walked up here as if like, I'm here now. And she's now rolling around on the floor in front of me. It's a family Christmas episode. So he's released, and a month later he's in Berkeley, California. He's called the probation services. He is transferred to the supervision of a criminology researcher and a federal probation officer called Roger Smith. Now, Manson and his family, as we'll get to, they were regular visitors to an institution run by this Roger Smith called the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic in San Francisco. Now, the clinic was given funding, apparently by the CIA, to study the effects of LSD and similar hallucinogenic drugs on the counterculture movement that was emerging in the San Francisco area. So, you know, hippies, that kind of thing. They're like, these kids are taking LSD. We need to know what it's doing to them. I can't imagine anything worse than taking LSD.
Yeah, no thanks.
I couldn't bear, like, I don't want to hallucinate.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing. It's like, you know, ayahuasca, which if you listen to a podcast that has two men on it, they will eventually get around to talking about it. I honestly, it sounds like my worst nightmare. I find the effects of it fascinating. I find it fascinating how human beings hallucinate the same things.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
From
like,
different cultures.
Yes, I find that absolutely fascinating. But hearing about it is tedious. So the patients, they go along with this research, which kind of must be enjoyable for them. And Manson, while he's doing this experiment, he starts meeting women and they start to, you know, get a bit... They find him quite fascinating and intriguing. I imagine these are fundamentally boring women as well, if they find him fascinating.
I don't know.
I think
he must have some kind of magnetism to just...
I just find it
get these people
strange.
So obsessed with him. Obviously, there's drugs at play there as well, but I do think he must have something about him.
He's so involved with the studies that he was actually given permission to move to be near the clinic. So it was actually noted in the study that Charles Manson's personality abruptly changed with the LSD use. Because that's the other thing, it can change your personality, can't it?
Yeah.
Maybe I should take it. He gets very interested in sort of the free love movement that's emerging in the 60s. You know, he starts getting into the Beatles. He read a book called Stranger in a Strange Land, which is a science fiction book, and he began preaching his own philosophy based on that book and also based on the Beatles. He read a book called, which I've actually read, Dale Carnegie, who's a self-help author. I read one of his books called Stop Worrying, Start Living, because I used to be a chronic worrier. Very good book. He also wrote the famous How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah. And sort of with the science fiction book, the Beatles, a little dash of Scientology and information from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Manson sort of creates his own sort of religion in a way.
Yes. He sort of picks the most interesting or appetising to him parts of the Bible. He's obsessed with the Beatles and long has been, and he believed that the Beatles used to speak to him through their lyrics. And then when the White Album came out in December 1968, he was like, this is about me and this is sent to me.
Incredible arrogance.
Yeah. So he thought that this was a really clear message. So it's a mixture of the Book of Revelations and the White Album, which would be one hell of a fucking mashup, wouldn't it? So
God.
He basically thought that the Beatles are the four angels that are referred to in Revelation 9. And because they talk about locusts, which of course relates to beetles, and that their prophets have faces of the faces of men, but the hair of women. So he was like, well, it's them because they've got long hair. Honestly. And then when they described the 4 angels as having breastplates of fire, he was like, that's electric guitars. And like, well, what's Ringo in this? God. Is he holding the coats while the rest of them do it? And then he says they will issue fire and brimstone. And he's like, well, those are the song lyrics. So he thought that basically his theory was that there was a race war coming. And what would happen is that liberal white people would become enslaved by like radical black movements, and there would be a race war, and his family would survive because they would ingratiate themselves with like the Black Panthers and things like that, and the pro-civil rights movements, and then they would kill them once they killed all the white people, so they would be the last people left on Earth.
Oh God, it's so long-winded and insane.
Yeah, and he thought like Rocky Raccoon was about black people, and Happiness is a Warm Gun was about, we got to get guns. It's so mad. He was like, it's about, we have to be armed for the revolution. Like, I'm pretty sure it's about banging, mate. But, yeah.
He's mad.
And one of the family members, Paul Watkins, blames the Beatles for the murders. He says, before Helter Skelter came along, all Charlie cared about was orgies.
Oh, my God. Like, you can't blame the Beatles for this. You can't. I won't have it, actually.
No. There's a lot of things you can blame them for, Oasis being one of them, but I don't think that you can blame them for...
Don't you even... It's Christmas, how dare you?
So in like the late 60s, about 1968, Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys divorces Carol Friedman, who's his first wife. And so he's doing classic post-divorce rock star shit, and he's in this massive house just outside of LA. That spring, he's driving along and he picks up 2 female hitchhikers, and he says, come back to mine for milk and cookies. Fucking hell. God. Yeah, obviously a synonym for sex, but they do genuinely have milk and cookies. And so after that, they start chatting about the Maharishi and transcendental meditation. And they said, we've got a spiritual guru who guides us. And he was like, really? And she was like, yeah. They were like, yeah, it's this guy called Charlie, and you've got to meet him. He's incredible. Which is fucking mad.
Oh my God.
So then they sort of go their separate ways. Anyway, Dennis Wilson comes back to his massive house one night. All the lights are on, and there's a school bus outside. And then this guy starts walking towards him. He's very short. And he says, are you a burglar? Are you here to hurt me? And he says, do I look like I'm going to? And then he drops to his knees and kisses Dennis Wilson's feet. And then they have this, like, relationship. Like, the family comes to live with him. So there's, like, loads of people living in this massive mansion. And about 20 women would come and sort of stay and pass through the property. And he was like, yeah, this is great. Fuck Carol. This is actually how I want to live my life. And he loved it at first. And because he used to pick up hitchhikers and didn't mind having sort of people around he thought was inspiring. And he was like, Charles Manson is actually quite charismatic. He's got some big ideas. He's obviously a deep thinker. Everyone was in fucking taking LSD at the time. And Charles Manson was very generous with this LSD because the family made their money from being dealers at that time, basically. He saw this little guy with loads of drugs and women hanging on his every word, and he's like, well, I'm going to keep him around because I want some of what he's got. And there would be, like I say, massive orgies. So Charles Manson is there for a different purpose. He wants a record contract. And
of course he does.
Yeah. And so he starts going, could you introduce me to everyone you know? And he's like, yeah, I suppose I can. There's no harm in that. And he's like, cool. Can you call me the Wizard? So Dennis Wilson starts calling him the Wizard and being like, you've got to meet this guy, and introduces him to Neil Young, who thought, God, this guy can just improvise. He's amazing. And then this guy called Greg Jacobson, who was a talent scout. And he was like, wow, I've got to put you in my documentary about, amazing talent in LA. And then there's a guy called Terry Melcher, who is a big producer at Columbia Records. Weirdly, he is the son of Doris Day.
Oh.
And Terry Melcher is sort of, a smart cookie who's made a lot of big stars. And then he's like, you got to meet the Wizard. And Terry Melcher meets him and is like, this guy is fucking weird. and he just didn't like him straight away. He was like, he's fucking intense and weird. And they were like, come over to my house and hang out with him and do some LSD. And he's like, absolutely not.
Finally, somebody's like, this guy's weird.
Yes.
Finally.
But this is the thing, there's a very interesting thing. He said, let him come over to your house and you can hang out and get to know him. Terry Melcher lived at 10050 Celio Drive in Benedict Canyon, and he says, no, he's not coming over. Now, that house is specific and very significant because when Terry Melcher moves out of it, Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski move into it.
Ah.
So a house that Charles Manson was always meant to visit and wanted to visit, but was one of the only places he was declined, is where a scene of some murders takes place. Now,
interesting.
The other Beach Boys fucking hate Charles Manson. They're like, he's weird.
Good.
Mike Love said, he wrote in his book, oh yeah, I was meant to go over to Dennis's for a dinner party, and I turned up and everybody was completely naked.
Oh my God,
and then
no.
after dinner, everyone took a load of LSD and had an orgy. So he said, I'm just going to go and have a shower. So he has a shower, and then Charles Manson fucking bursts in while he's showering and was like, how dare you leave, what are you doing? And he's like, what the fucking fuck? But Dennis Wilson,
such a jumped up little tosser.
he really is. Also, walking on someone in the shower is pretty full on, I think.
Yeah, it's rude.
But I there's something so vulnerable about when you're washing yourself, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's control, that.
When
Control, it's like, that's someone at the most vulnerable.
have I told you about when my partner went on a stag do for one of our friends? I know it's not very him, is it, stag do? But it was...
no, that's why I'm like, it's just kind
I must have told you this. They went on a stag do, and it was organised by... It should have been organised by friend of the show, Will Duggan,
Okay.
and my partner. But the guy's oldest friend, and no one in this story will mind me saying that, is one of the most feckless humans in the world. And he was like, oh, let him organise it. So they all paid a deposit for this like nice big National Trust property. Have I not told you this? And then he forgot to pay the money, so he lied and said it was double booked, but it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
And then they went to a serviced apartments where there was like... the beds were broken. The toilet only one toilet would flush, and one of them was boiling water. I've told you this, right?
No, this sounds horrible.
Yeah, so the toilet would flush, but it only had boiling water in it. So you'd get like a piss or shit facial every time you.
Oh no, please,
flushed
please
it.
don't. This is horrible.
There was one working shower, and that's where the working toilet was in. And my partner was in the shower, and then this guy who's organised. Oh, this is fucking hilarious. They want to go-karting, so that was one of the activities, but he forgot to book it. So the only slot they had, because it's like the day of it or the day before, was at 7:30 a.m. to go.
Oh my God, they did it.
Yeah, so they all went and got fucking hammered, and then were on the racetrack at 7:30 a.m.
Oh no, this is horrible.
But my partner was having a shower, and this guy... The guy who organised it was like, I need a piss. And he's like, right, well, I'm going to be out in a second. And he just... You know some keys you can undo with a 10p piece?
Yeah.
He just he unlocked the door and went in while my partner was in the shower. And luckily my partner is like...
No.
I don't know if it's because he's got a massive cock or whatever, but he's not shy about... He's not ashamed of his body. So he was... I was like, what did you say when he walked in? He said, I just said, absolutely not, and pointed at the door and told him to get out. But yeah, how fucking weird's that? But sometimes I think, because I joke about my partner having a big willy and stuff, and loads of people have talked about it or said it, or they've lived with him and things, that I think people want to have a look. So they're like, take the opportunity to have a good old stare.
What I'd say is ask. Like, if you really are that bizarre that you want to see the evidence, right? Ask somebody. Ask, and if the answer's no... Move on with your life. Don't be creeping in when someone's having a wash. It's so weird. It's so bizarre.
It's really weird.
Also, actually, that is weird, but also it's not as weird as go-karting at 7:30 in the morning.
Imagine being hungover. You know what you'd be? Like that monkey with its head in its hands. Like 7:30 a.m. with a hired balaclava on, getting into a helmet that stinks, still pissed.
No,
they were definitely still drunk.
It's a nightmare.
My partner said he was he meant to brake and he just put the accelerator on and went straight into a wall.
And that was a relief.
Yeah, the sweet release of death. No one can stare at my cock while I'm driving into a wall.
I find situations like, to be honest, I've only ever been on one hen do, but I find situations like that incredibly stressful. Like, people that I don't know, or because this is the thing. Like, and people never believe me about this. I am a shy person. I'm still shy. I just do a very good job of pretending not to be now, and it's just my worst nightmare. Like, oh no, and now we've got to go-karting at 7:30.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. A nightmare.
Speaking of nightmare, I've got a little bit more on this Wilson bit. So, Dennis Wilson, despite nearly everyone else's advice, thinks that there's something about Charles Manson. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna set up a recording with the Beach Boys' record label, which is Brother Records, so they'll finance it. So
I just have to say as well, isn't it awful when sort of you're in a group of friends and then one of those friends starts bringing a new character into the scenario, and nobody likes that person, and it's like, oh no, he's brought him again.
I feel like, now this is going to sound sexist, but it does happen with all genders. When someone brings on a girlfriend and you're like, why are we out with her now? Especially because if it's a heterosexual relationship, often as the woman you get sat with the other girls and you're like, fuck this, I didn't come up for this. But also, there is nothing worse when a female friend of yours has a boring boyfriend that comes along to everything, or worse, one that thinks they're funny and wants to make you laugh because you're a comedian.
You just took the words out of my mouth then. There is nothing worse than, and it is always men that do this, sorry, this is a fact, it's like they find out you're a comedian. Also, it's like, I'm a comedian, but I'm not a comedian when I'm in the pub. Yeah. I'm having a drink. Yeah. I'm not at work. You're not getting gold off me in the pub, right? And it's that constant thing of it. But also, I hate people sort of, you know what it is as well? There's that vibe, and it is, again, it's men, and it usually is that scenario where it's a new boyfriend of somebody. And it's like they question you about being a comedian. Like they don't believe that you are one. Do you know what I mean? Like, so how did you get into it? And where do you perform? And, that kind of questioning, like, they don't believe you.
Yeah. It shows that they're desperate to be stand-ups, right?
Yes.
And then what they do is that they're a bit like, well, how can she do it? Because I want to do it, and I'm not it.
Yeah.
And they don't go, because you haven't done, 1,000 gigs in shitholes. But, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there's that, I find this a lot of the time when you get, like, a very difficult, not necessarily male heckler, but a man in the audience who's being difficult when you're on stage. You know what I mean? It's like they're sitting there going, why is she doing that and I'm not? It's like, because you can't.
Yeah.
Like, I probably couldn't do your job, whatever that is, and you can't do mine.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of get off on it a bit, really. I love it. Anyway, the Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys. So he's organised this recording session for Charles Manson, and it ends on bad terms because during it, the sound engineer is like, oh, can we tweak this, or I'm just going to do this, and Charles Manson's like, no, I don't want that, and he ends up pulling a knife out on him.
Oh my God, what is going on? This guy's an idiot.
He's a maniac. But there's
can't take direction.
Cannot take direction. What a red flag. Now, about this time, Dennis is getting a bit tired of, all these people coming and going from his house. They are, like, spending loads of money on booze, food, even medical bills. They're smashing the place up all the time. And during the summer, basically, the bills they think were about £100,000.
Wow.
And so he's like, you know what?
That's like a gas bill now.
You know what? This wizard needs to disappear from whence he came.
The wizard. I can't... everything about this, I hate it. He's such a pain in the neck. He's an arsehole.
But, like, I think Dennis Wilson is scared of him. So, because what he does is he moves out of that house because it's a rented property, and he just moves out and finds somewhere else. So the family is still living there, not knowing that the rent is about to expire, the lease is about to expire, and so the landlord formally evicts them. And so there's this big tension between the men, and it increases because this is the wildest part for me. Charles Manson writes a song called Cease to Exist. And Dennis is like, this is quite a good song, actually. And so he takes it and changes the name to it and tweaks some of the lyrics. And it's Never Learn Not to Love. And then he says he wrote it all. And that was the thing that pissed Charles Manson off, is like, I needed that credit. You should have given me that credit because that was my way into the recording industry. You stole
Do you know what?
my song.
Absolutely fair. Do you know what? I like to be fair, and I do you know what? It's not often I'll say this. Team Charles on this one. Team Manson. That's bang out of order.
Dennis Wilson sees Charles Manson later that year, like at the end of the year, and says, "Oh, one of those songs is going to be on a Beach Boys album."
Oh, this is rude.
Yeah, but what they did is it was their 2020 album, and there was a single called Bluebirds Over the Mountain in December 1968, and the B-side to it was Never Learn Not to Love, which was Cease to Exist.
Wow.
And
totally out of order.
Yeah, he tried to threaten Dennis Wilson. So he goes up to him one day and he's got a bullet, and he's like, do you know what I think? It's really important that you keep your children safe, and shows him this bullet. But then Dennis fucking loses it and apparently batters him.
Do you know what? It's such a weird situation.
It's mad. It's mad.
It's so weird.
And also,
these people are all drug-addled nutters.
They're nutters. They are nutters. Because at one point, Dennis Wilson confesses to someone that he's scared of Charles Manson because he's seen him shoot someone and put him down a well.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Now, Terry Melcher comes back again because Charles Manson is like... Basically, Dennis Wilson was like, you need to impress Terry. He's the one. Like, he's the guy with all the power. And he's like, okay, I'll do these recording sessions. And he's meant to get a record deal. But... he was like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. He was just sort of kicking the can down the road because he knew this guy was volatile. And he was like, okay, fine. Well, if you're not going to give me a recording contract, then I'm going to start a race war that the Beatles told me about in their lyrics.
Oh, God.
So this is where the murders happen.
Yes.
So that's part 2. We thought that this was going to be only 3 parts, but it might be like every time we talk about it, there's more to talk about. So we're going to do another part.
Yeah, and this will probably it'll just happen over Christmas, this, won't it?
Yeah.
It'll just continue to be... and we actually asked the audience at a gig, didn't we? We said, would you like them all on Christmas Day, or do you want them... And we thought everyone would want them all on Christmas Day. We were wrong.
We were wrong.
They want them as and when.
We were so wrong, Rachel.
We were so wrong. I was shocked.
Once again, thanks to everyone who came to our Christmas shows and also gave so generously. He gave pairs of pants to Sifa Fireside. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's a charity that supports people who are having to sleep rough over Christmas and who don't have sort of safe and secure housing. And we asked them, and they were like, the thing that we never get is men's pants, and you bought fucking hundreds of pairs. And some of you watched on the live stream and donated directly, which is a beautiful thing to do.
Oh, that's nice.
It's really nice. So the live stream will, about a week after the show, so, probably about when this podcast is coming out, it will go up on Next Up and stay there for a week. So you can catch up if you didn't manage to catch it, or you can watch it again.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys, for being so brilliant. I hope you are having the lovely final days of 2022, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.